Today, I'm going to talk about China and North Korean relations. This is the Korean Peninsula, and this is China. And Korea is divided in two. This is Japan. This is Russia. You see? Compared to it. And South Korea is 1/5 of Spain. So it's the size of Andalusia. Can have an idea, right? And North Korea is a little bit bigger than South Korea. Population. Spain is less than 50 million. So Korea is a fifth of Spanish territory, but the population is bigger than Spain. So you can imagine the competition is very, very strong in Korea, South Korea. In North Korea, the population is about half of South Korea. So now we will see the important factors to consider why there is a so strong tie between North Korea and China. First, common border. As we saw in the first image, and now this image, you see the common border is quite long, more than 1,000 kilometers long, and here was short, this one with Russia, and this one really the geographic situation, condition, history of one country, and the Korean Peninsula is not the exception. So we will see this one. Because of this common border with China, we had in our history a lot of flow of culture ties and movement, and also the political relations, very close political and historical relations. And this, see, 1,460 kilometers long border, and especially this part. In North Korean side is a city of Sinuiju, and the other side is crossing just a bridge. It's Dandung. Then what happened there? Dandung is the largest city on the border, and then Sinuiju is the other side, as I said, is on the other side of the river. Much of the China-North Korea trade goes through the port of Dandung. So for North Korea is kind of a lifeline to the outside world. Through this city, they do smuggling. They buy all the luxury goods from other countries, like from European countries, that they need for the privileged politicians and the Kim Jong-un family. And then all these commercial activities occur from this port city, Dandung. And then let's see the border of ancient time. We saw common border now, and you see the Korean Peninsula. In the ancient time, Korea was much bigger, but we lost all this part to China. And when this part was the territory of Korea, the dynasty was called Goguryeo. When Goguryeo fell, and then the remnant of Goguryeo people established the dynasty or the Balhae dynasty. Yeah? So you just think of this, and then later it will come back because people who lived here, some of them came down when this territory was conquered by China, but not everyone came down to the Korean Peninsula. Most of them stayed and still live there as ethnic Koreans. Okay? And this area, the era of Joseon and now present time, contemporary time of Korea. See? And then in Joseon dynasty, now the present frontier was fixed. Okay? Now we see historical background. So first one, between China and North Korea, we have a common border, very long common border, which is we cannot ignore in a historical point and political view. Yeah? So the historical background, always in Spain also, you have common border with which country? France. And you have a conflict in history, right? In Spain, before it was united as one country, it was divided in various dynasties, right? So China, before it was united, like was with the Su, you are from China? Okay, Sui, you call it Sui, right? And Tang, Han. But in times, it was divided in different dynasties, right? And then Korea also, in our history, Korea once, at the beginning of our history, was a small reigns, dynasties. But what happened? People want to get more things, right? And then, okay, I want to conquer the neighbor dynasty and make a bigger our kingdom. So it happened also in northern part of Northeast Asian part. Okay, and then since China and Korea are close, there were always conflicts. And then the first real important conflict occurred in 108 BC. And then at that time was a Han dynasty. And then Han defeated the northern part of Korean Peninsula and east of four commanderies. It lasted for centuries. And at the end, in the 6th century, the Goguryeo kingdom expelled the last. Well, the first three was recovered in less than 50 years, but the last one, Langnam, stayed until AD 313. So you see these four, and this one lasted until 83, 313 years. What happened then during these years? There was a flow of culture and also politics. So Goguryeo Kingdom was the rival force not only to the Sui, but Han and Tang. But when Korea was bigger than the the present size of the peninsula of Korea, there was always conflict with different kingdoms of China, but especially when China was big and united, and then it was a rival force because Korea was not small at the time, it was big, and then it was a kind of a threat for China. So there was always a war between these two countries. Okay? And actually, Korea was united before, and then there were three kingdoms: Goguryeo, Baekje, Silla. The Silla united all these three kingdoms with the help of China, Tang. But Tang, once Korea was united, also wanted to conquer all Korea. But the remnant forces of Goguryeo and Baekje could repel the forces of China. Yeah? So there was always this kind of, the couple, you love each other, but also always there was a kind of different opinions, in quarrel. See? So this happened. There was sometimes, friendly relations, but also there was a conflict. And during the 16th century, the Ming Dynasty also sent a troop, tried to conquer Korea. And later, last Chinese dynasty, this king, also tried to conquer Korea, but the detail, the research of this war, then I will not enter. Okay? And the 19th century, again, there was it's more than I would say than conflict between Korea and China. During all this history, the relations China and Korea, China acted as a big brother for Korea. Well, and also we treated Japan as a small brother. We were in between these two. So, also in a certain period of time, Korea had to pay tribute to China. It's not different like the colonization. Is a system of tribute at that time is much more loose than what we think now the colonization. Okay? And then toward the end of the 19th century, actually Korea, after the two very hard wars with China and Japan, Korea decided to close the country to exterior. It passed over 250 years. You see the last war in the 1636. So when 250 years, and then it's almost the end of 19th century. And then in the end of 19th century, there was a very active international political movement. The European countries were looking for markets, international market in different areas of the world. Many countries went to Asia asking diplomatic relations and open its market. And so, as we saw before in the lecture of Professor Son, Japan was kind of first open to have the diplomatic relations with the United States. And then they came to Korea and knocked the door to establish diplomatic relations and also the activities of commerce. But Korea was so disappointed with these invasions from China, Russia, and Japan, and then decided not to open. But it was a really big mistake for Korea because we lost the chance to have the international exchange of first commerce and also politics and all different kind of the time modern knowledge, technology, all these things, because Japan, thanks to this first open door policy, Japan now is quite an advanced country in Asia. But Korea lost the chance. And then, until that time, China was a big brother to Korea. For instance, interfere the Korean politics and all different kind of the matters of Korea. Then Japan, and then it kind of crushed the interest of China and Japan in the end of the 19th century. At that time, China was already losing his power as an empire. Because you don't know, end of the 19th century, what had happened to China. Also, because of the lecture of Professor Son, you will have an idea, right? The Opium War and all this other, they opened the country, but very disadvantaged the convenience agreements with different countries. So China at the time, country was big, but was weakened. Yeah? What happened in Japan? Japan was rising new power. And then Japan had an ambition to be, to conquer continent Asia. Then first, since Korea is in between, in order to conquer continent China, firstly, Japan had to eat in Korea. And then China, since it was always a big brother, protector of Korea, would not let Japan do it. And then what happened? It crushed interest. Especially Japan provoked the war. And who would win? China was already weak power. Japan was prepared to conquer continental Asia. So Japan won the war. And you know the international politics. Causa de ese war, de guerra, está creado Estado de Taiwan. Because of this war, China lost Taiwan. And then this you heard the first, the president of the Republic of China, Taiwan, was the Sun, nosotros call it Somun, Sun Yat-sen. And he expected one day will go back to China to have all the mainland China as a republic, not communist country, but it never happened until now. So, you see, the international politics is quite interesting. So, and then in the 1941, during the Pacific War, there was a very interesting cooperation between China and the Korean Liberation Army. It was actually a provisional government of Korea, exiled, because at that time Korea was under the colonization of Japanese. And then during this Second World War, Chiang Kai-shek asked to the Korean Liberation Army, the provisional government of Korea, to fight on the side of China. And then the traditional, the provisional government of Korea put a condition. Once the war is over, please, and then put our issue of Korean Peninsula, its independence from Japan. And then now they agreed these conditions, and Korean Liberation Army fought aside of China. Okay? So after the war, then Chiang Kai-shek, at the time still was China was not a communist country, and then these three leaders of the victory of the Second World War, they met, and then they discussed about the independence of Korea. Okay? So finally, as we saw, in the 1948, both Korea, South Korea and North Korea declared the independence. Independence is in 1945 when Japanese defeated from the Second World War. But when after that, the thing is let's see, mi español está por allí. Bien. What had happened is after the war, and then the Potsdam declared that agreement, I would say, that Korea would be independent country, and then there is another agreement in Yalta, but the independence in due course, which means the United States and at that time is Soviet Union would occupy northern part, Russians, southern part, United States. That's the main reason why Korea is divided in half until now. Okay? And then, before complete 5 years, there was so much disagreement, political disagreement. So if it worked all correctly, and then after 5 years, there would be general election, and then there would be one country in the whole Korean Peninsula. But since it was divided and aconsejados, northern part by communist, southern part by capitalists. And those politicians, Koreans, northern part, pro-communist, southern part, pro-capitalist. It was impossible to have an agreement. That's why finally they brought this issue to the United Nations, and the United Nations decided to hold general elections in the whole Korean Peninsula. At first, North Korea also agreed, but at the end, no sale happened, so they boycotted. So just the southern part had an election and proclaimed the only legitimated country in the whole peninsula, the Korean Peninsula. And then what happened? United States as a head and all the allied countries in the United Nations recognized South Korea only lawful regime in Korean Peninsula, in North Korea. Oh, if we do not have our own election and proclaim the North Korea, and then we will lose all our rights. What had happened? Now something similar in the area, one area. Israel and Palestine. Okay, so North Koreans did not wait. You see, it was 15th of August, and they proclaimed 9th of September. So acted very quickly. So they had their own elections and proclaimed they are the only legitimate nation in the Korean Peninsula. And what happened in the United Nations? Soviet Union is ahead. All their allies, communist countries, recognized only North Korea as a lawful, legitimate nation in the Korean Peninsula. It lasted until when South Korea and North Korea entered both in United Nations. Okay. It was 1990. Okay, so we saw the common border, the historical background. There was sometimes amour, sometimes conflict. See, there's sweet and sour relations. Okay? And then when North Korea was proclaimed its only legitimate nation in Korean Peninsula, it now is People's Republic of China recognized, and then they made diplomatic relations first. The country, the diplomatic relations with North Korea. So it's very strong relations, especially when Mao Zedong was fighting against the nationalist forces. That time, North Korea had a very strong military equipment because the Russians left all those equipment. And then Kim Il-sung let use all this equipment from Mao Zedong. So Mao Zedong did not forget its help. So when North Korea was proclaimed, immediately they made diplomatic relations. And then these relations still continue until now. In contemporary relations between China and North Korea, you all know the Korean War, right? If there was no Chinese intervention, Korea now is a capitalist country of all the peninsula. But history is history. So Chinese intervention again marked the division between North and North and South. Okay? And in the 1961, again, after the Korean War, People's Republic of China and North Korea signed the Sino-North Korean Mutual Aid and Cooperation Friendship Treaty. This treaty is placed not only the military relations or military assistance between the two countries, but also economic relations. Especially its economic aid, Chinese economic aid to North Korea. Okay? And this treaty was prolonged twice in 1981 and 2001 with validity until 2021. And after 2021, again, they were prolonged. So, now, let's see the third item, the third issue. Ethnic and cultural ties. I asked you to think about or remember the bigger part of Korea, the northern part of Korea, southern part of Manchuria, which was part of Korea, and still the ethnic Koreans live there, right? So Korea always we received. China is a big culture in the world. There are big cultures. Like in Europe, which one? Greek, Roman, Latin, Greek, Latin, and in the Oriental part is a Chinese culture. So this Chinese culture is dispersed in different areas. In Korea, since we have a common border, directly we received Chinese culture. So we use the Chinese character, our written language, until 15th centuries. So it's very important for Korea, Chinese civilization, all this culture. So you see the written language, art, religion, and models of government and government administration also. Because the three different languages, the different religions entered to Korea through China. Buddhism, Confucianism, and also Christianism. Christianism came through China first. Later, the different missionaries from different countries entered directly. But the first entrance of Christianism was also through China. Okay? So the model of government administration is through the Confucian thought from China. So it was a very much Chinese influence in Korea. And now we see the Korean ethnic groups in China. Since the Neolithic period, Korean ethnic groups lived in Manchuria, Siberia, China, as you saw, the southern part of Manchuria. See? Those people actually came down from the northern part, Mongolia, Siberia, the part. Because that area is quite cold, and the people came down looking for the warm climate. So, and then it was mixed with Chinese people. So we always say, well, we are Korean. If we really study the ADN, all mixed. I have heard a lot of Japanese people, they say, we are the only Japanese, but also all mixed with Koreans. So this is just normal, you know. Before there was no border. The other day I was thinking that when I saw the birds, you know, the birds, immigrant birds, my goodness, they don't have a border. They just fly. And before, we didn't have a border either. It's all it's contemporary or modern. Well, actually, before in ancient history, they decide to, well, this territory is ours, and they, you know, put the big stone and written on up to here we were here, right? But anyway, and then you saw that the big territory there lived ethnic Koreans. Okay. At present time, a minority of around 2 million Koreans live in China. In the Jilin area, we will see the map. Here. It's more or less before it was Korean territory, right? Then still they live there. Okay, and then let's see, immigrations of the Koreans to China. Apart from these ethnic Koreans who live there during all this historic period of time, there was immigrations. Then first large-scale immigration of Koreans into China occurred about 300 years ago. We will call it as not so contemporary, but not so the ancient historic period. Okay? Migrate in order to avoid the oppressive feudal landlords. Here in Europe also, in a Middle-aged period of time, the lives of common people were very hard, right? And it happened in Korea as well. And then sometimes there's a famine, and then there's nothing to eat. And then what happened now from different countries, Spain is a problem, right? Immigrant problems, because they wanted to survive for a better life. Then it happened also in Korea. Then they escaped to China. Okay? And second wave was caused by the Great Famine in 1869, and the third wave of Korean migrants arrived during the prolonged war between Russia and Japan. Before the colonization of Korea by Japan, there was another war. So after the China and Japan war, Japan won and eliminated the influence of the Chinese. But there was another influence since Russia also we had a common border. And then Russia wanted to have that time the influence, also they wanted to be show as power in Asian continent as well. For that also they needed a port which in winter doesn't yellow frozen, because they can send through the water, the Pacific Ocean, their fleet, war fleet. So they need this the warm water, and then they have to have good relations with Korea. What happened? Japan again had to eliminate this Russian influence on Korea. So if you are interested in this war, you can check in the internet. It's described. Okay, so many immigrated to China during the Japanese occupation of Korea, also during the 20th century, but before then during the war with Russia and Japan. And then it's logical that many Koreans they escaped from the hardship of colonization of Korea by Japan. In the 1950s and 1960s, many ethnic Koreans in northeast China crossed the border into North Korea to escape economic hardship and famine in China. But just vice versa. Okay? So since we have a common border, and one part is has a hardship, is just to cross the border, look for better life. So that's it. But in general, it was Koreans to cross the border to China. Yeah? In recent years, the flow of refugees has reversed with a considerable number of North Koreans fleeing to China, because the river between the China and Korea is quite a long river, and then some part is very narrow and shallow, and then you can cross. But before, the control was not strong, but now the control is very strict. And then people during winter time, it's very cold winter time, and then it's very thick ice in the river, so they can just cross walking. But it's not easy now, especially this North Korean side. If they are captured, and then they will be put in a prison and with a very harsh punishment. Okay, so and then in Chinese Koreans, in autonomous prefecture Yongbyon, where I showed you the map, is in Jilin province, and then in this province, the whole population is 2.2 million in 2010. Then a third were Koreans. It's a lot. And well, in this part, especially ethnic Koreans, they are model minority, because probably it's they are influenced by South Koreans, very competitive, because not because South Koreans they wanted to be competitive, but the condition of the society that we are living, because in small territory, huge population, then you have to show that you are better than the others in order to survive, in order to get a job, for instance, right? And then what happened? That Koreans really fan of collect certificates, diplomas, and get a license. Show when they have to get a job. I have all these things that they have done. And then probably this ethnic people, Korean people in China, so they are really also keen on the education of the children. So it's quite, they said it's a model minority. Okay, this one is so. Now, the last one, ideology and security. Actually, now who talk about communist ideology in the world? Maybe only China and North Korea. Even Cuba?
What Cuba?
Yeah, it's a few countries, right? Yeah. And China also, they really does not talk much about this communist ideology now, because they really use quite a lot capitalist system, right? So, but still, they have to support each other. There are few left as a communist regime. So, China's support for North Korea, considering the American presence in the region, is pragmatic and reinforced by ideological justification. They said, well, we have to support North Korea as our common ally, and especially China does not want the American presence in Korean Peninsula. So North Korea is kind of a buffer zone. Because in South Korea, there's an American military presence. So if South Korea united the whole peninsula, it comes a capitalist system, and then China does not want it in their border. There's a presence of United States, especially they are very, very upset with South Korea. That's the South Korean government led that anti-missile system thought in South Korean Peninsula. So they punished South Korea in a kind of economic way. For instance, China has a very big population, so they sometimes use it as an arm. Stop the tourists to South Korea. Was a really big loss for South Korean economy. And not only to South Korea, sometimes China used to, which country is it? Moldavia. No, it's Moldavia. In the Indian Ocean, there's a sea. It's a country. Also, China used, because their country is practically live with the tourists of China. So sometimes it's not easy for this geopolitics, the relations of geopolitics. So these two countries, you see, North Korea need China. Now we will see about the issue of economy of North Korea. So first is for China, if North Korea collapses, you expect South Korea will border China and oppose a trade. It's a definition too. And cows on its border is a real worry for China. There's 100,000 of refugees will get into China. It's it's a very long border. If North Korea region collapse, and then they will just cross the border. This is happening in Italy, in Spain. So, and then since 2015, 16, 17, 18, and there was this exchange of visit, but not the head of the state, because China really worried about the communist dynasty in North Korea. Okay. Beijing, China actually supports United Nations Security Council resolutions about the sanctions, economic sanctions on North Korea, but it's call it paper tiger, kind of. They signed, but implementation, doubt. There are many ways to avoid implement. So because of the United States, the pressure in the security resolution, the UN security resolution, they have to sign it, but we will see how they avoid the implementation. Okay. China opposed harsh international sanctions on North Korea in the hope of avoiding recent collapse in refugee flows into its border. Economy now, see. China's support of Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un has been vital to North Korea's development. Economic development. China provided extensive assistance to North Korea to support its reconstruction through the Sino-Korea the treaty they have signed in 1961. Okay. So we will see the trade volume. But until 1990, the trade volume between China and North Korea was not so big. It was less than 30%. But since then, it increased very sharply. So in 2016, between China and North Korea amounted, so you see, 51 billion US dollar, representing approximately 92%. Before was 70%, but since 1999 until it was only 25%, but in the 2016, 92%. Especially when on the UN Security Resolution, they imposed sanctions against North Korea because of what? Missile launch and nuclear test. And then they heavily depended on China. Because other countries, they had to abide by the UN Security Resolution. Then the relations, commercial relations between China and North Korea increased. See? This is a red part is China. So, is China effectively implementing the UN sanctions against North Korea? Not really. How they avoid? I mean, for instance, for North Korea, its export coal to China is very important for their economy. And then, in theory, they shouldn't import. But otherwise, and then the North Korean regime would collapse. So they disguise. And the household, the coal is necessary because all these principal items for survival are permitted, and then they disguise the items. Okay, so all this increase. So China takes a flexible approach in the wording us UN sanctions in order to argue that they are not outright violating these resolutions. And so China had banned import of coal from North Korea in April in 2016, but made exceptions for household use. So just to change the word. Which in part led to China unable to meet their commitment as they wrestle with these problems. So actually, no, all they can not only all these international politics, and I realized those things in university as well. Okay? So sanctions have not been effective. There were some hints from different institutions. Hyundam University, this is a Korean university, they have a department of North Korean studies. Then it said there has been a noticeable easing in oversight by authorities. And Chinese customs offices, they said this, all these luxury items are prohibited. But they changed the name. Also, there are many different ways to still continue entry. So, when the items are being disguised as products that are not subject to the instituted resolution sanctions and are being traded. Okay? So let's see. First summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un in June 2018. And there was no big deal, but they left room to continue negotiations. Yeah? Now you see the faces of two people. It was Hanoi. So the second summit breaks between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un in February 27 and 28.